Hi everyone, welcome back for another English lesson today. We're going to continue thinking about our poems today, and you can see from our icon we're going to be looking at some poems by a fairly famous poet and thinking about what technique she has used in her poems. And then by the end of the lesson we're also going to be thinking about planning our own poems, because as you know, by the end of the week our aim is that we will have become a poet ourselves and we will have written our very own poems. Now, we know poetry is all about words, okay? And we talked about earlier in the week about how making sure that we choose the best words possible and perhaps in the best order. So we're going to play a bit of a game which is called word tennis. And in order to play word tennis, you're going to need a partner. So that might be your mum, your dad, your brother, your sister, preferably someone that can talk. So hopefully not your dog as your partner. But the idea will be that you are going to choose one of these words, okay, in red, and you are going to bat backwards and forwards a new word which is associated with the first word you say. Okay, so I'll give you an example to help you to explain that. The word that stands out to me is this word here, bonfire. Okay, so when I think of the word bonfire, another word comes into my head, and that first word that I think of is hot. Okay, so my word in my game of word tennis is then going to be hot, and then that's me batting the word back to my partner. So my partner would then need to think of something that is then related to the word hot. So they might then say burning. Okay, and then it's batted back to me, so then it's my turn, and I might think of then summer, and then batted back to my partner, they might then say ice cream. Okay, so I want you to have a go at playing word tennis, and that game can be as long or as short as you want it to be. But the idea will be that you are going to come up with words associated with the last word that your partner has said. You could even play more than one game and choose one or more of these words. Have fun, pause the video now, I'll see you in a minute. Welcome back. How did you get on? I wonder how creative you could be with the words that you chose. And I'm sure when you started off a bit like me, when I thought of the word bonfire, the first word I thought of was perhaps a bit of a simple word. So I had to get a little bit creative. And the more practice that I had, the better I got at the words that I chose. So hopefully you've been the same. And we're going to need to use that skill when it comes to thinking of ideas for our poems today, because it's very likely that the first word that comes into our head is not going to be the best one. And when we come to plan our poems towards later in the lesson, we're going to need to perhaps have a go at batting some ideas backwards and forwards, and perhaps sharing ideas with a partner, perhaps with somebody at home, in order to really get your best ideas. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed that warm-up game. So today then, as we continue thinking about poetry, we're going to be thinking about a particular poem in particular, because this poem, and it's written by the poet, Sylvia Plath. This poet is written from this poem, is written from a particular viewpoint, and we are going to be using this as a bit of an example, perhaps, for the poems that we write. Okay, so in a moment, I'm going to show you that poem and I'm going to read that to you. And I want you to be thinking about two things while I'm reading that poem to you. You will find this poem on the Google Drive, so you can print it out if you want to. But the first thing that I want you to think about when I'm reading it is what point of view is this poem being told from? So you'll see the word I is used quite a lot in the poem. Can you figure out what I is? And I purposely said what and not who, because it's not a person, it's an object. We'll look at it in a moment. And then the second thing that I want you to think about as well is which of these poetic features can you see in the poem? How has Sylvia Plath used rhythm? How has she used similes? Has she used any metaphors? Is there any rhyme that you can spot? And if you have printed it out, then perhaps you can highlight some of those key ideas. Okay, it will be important to unpick them because you might want to pinch some for your own ideas a bit later on. Okay, so let's have a look at the poem now. So you'll see I've purposely not included the title of the poem, and that's because that tells you what the poem is about. And that's the first thing that I want you to do. Can you figure out what this poem is about? So what is the I in this poem? And as I said, can you spot any of those poetic features? I am silver and exact. I have no preconceptions. A preconception is when you have an idea about something, when you don't really know it very well. Okay, so it's a bit of an idea or a thought or an opinion about someone or something when you don't really know the truth. Okay, I'll start again. I am silver and exact. Something that's going to be silver and something that's exactly as it is. And I have no preconceptions. Whatever I see, I swallow immediately. Just as it is, unmisted by lies, love, or dislike. I am not cruel, only truthful. Something that always tells the truth. Remember, this is not someone, something. I am the eye of the little god, four-cornered. Something that's silver, that has four corners, always tells the truth, seems to be able to look, have an eye of some sort. Most of the time I meditate on the opposite wall, so sit quietly on a wall. It is pink with speckles. I've looked at it so long. That's the wall that it's talking about. I think it is part of my heart, but it flickers. Faces and darkness separate us over and over. So what might be looking at faces all the time? Now I am a lake. So this item, this object, seems to have changed into a lake. A woman bends over me, searching my reaches for what she really is. Then she turns into those liars, the candle or the moon. I see her back and reflect it faithfully. Something that can reflect something. She rewards me with terrible tears and an agitation of hands. I am important to her. She comes and goes. Each morning it is her face that replaces the darkness. In me she has been a young girl, and in me an old woman. Rises towards her day after day like a terrible dragon. Do you have any ideas? What could this thing be? What could this item be? And what clues do you have? Clues that I can pick out. I know that something that's going to be silver, something that has four corners, something that always tells the truth, something that gets looked at quite a lot. I think I'm getting closer to being able to figure it out. Something that somebody else looks at, and it says it reflects quite a lot. Have you figured it out? The title of the poem, and actually the viewpoint that this poem is told from, is a mirror. So Sylvia Plath has written a poem about an object using it as that viewpoint. The I is the mirror. And the poem is written as though the mirror has written this poem. So it uses the poem's viewpoint. It talks about what it sees, what it's heard, perhaps what sorts of things it does. Okay, so we're going to use that as our focus for our poems. Did you spot any features, any of those tools that we've talked about all week? What can I see? I saw, particularly at the bottom here, rises towards her day after day like a terrible dragon. So I can see an example of a simile there. She rewards me with terrible tears, an example of alliteration there. I could see some different rhythms going on. We had some really short lines, and in fact 2 short lines together with then some longer lines is here. here as well. So we can see purposely they've been chosen to be put together to create some sort of a rhythm. I wonder if you spotted any other examples that perhaps I haven't. So, as I've said, we are going to be using Sylvia Plath as our inspiration today, and we're not going to be writing about a mirror. We're not going to be writing about an object in our houses. We are going to be writing about a Viking object, and I want you to choose one of these Viking weapons. You might want to write your poem from the viewpoint of a sword. You might want to write your poem from the viewpoint of a shield, from a helmet, from an axe. Okay, I want you to choose one. And I want you to be thinking about, what do you imagine this item would feel like if it did have feelings? The things that it might have done in its lifetime, how might it feel? Okay, I'm thinking about a sword as the one that I'm going to pick, and I think a sword might feel a little bit guilty, perhaps, for the things that it's done, the tears that it might have caused, the troubles that it might have caused in its lifetime. How does it feel about its owner? I should imagine a sword would be very loyal. I know that a sword is like a man's best friend, so it would almost honour its owner, perhaps. What has it seen? It will have seen many battles. It will have seen many tears. It will have seen many troubles and perhaps many raids. And also, it will have heard many secrets, many whispers from its owner, and many plans, perhaps. Okay, so I'm turning this sword into, it's almost a bit like a person, okay? And we call that personification. When we use an object that doesn't have person features, but I'm going to pretend that it does, okay? And that's another poetic feature. We call that personification. So I want us to start creating a plan together. Okay, and I want you to start thinking about the answers to these questions, and the answers to these questions will help you to form your plan. So, do you want your poem to be quite dramatic, or do you want it to have quite a sad mood, perhaps? Do you want it to have quite an exciting mood or a scary mood? Who do you want your object to belong to? I think for my sword that I'm going to choose is very likely to have belonged to a king, perhaps. Who might be the owner of your weapon that you're choosing? Think about your object's feelings if it had them. Where might it have been? What might it have seen? What secrets might it have heard? How might it feel about what it's done in the past? So once you've developed all of your ideas, you can start putting your ideas into a plan, which is exactly what I've done here. You'll find this outline of the plan on the Google Drive, okay? And you can definitely use some of my ideas to help you, which is why I've popped them down. So we know that one of the features in a poem, and we saw Sylvia Plath use some examples of those as well in her Mirror poem, is alliteration. So I've come up with some words that I would like to use to describe my sword, that uses alliteration because the words start with the same sound. Now you will have seen some of these ideas already this week. I've chosen forged in fire, bold and brave, and enigmatic enemy. Where have we seen those ideas from? Yeah, you're right. These were some of the lines that we used in our jigsaw poems earlier in the week. So you can see I'm using previous learning to help me with my ideas. And you can do the same. You can use some of those cards that you created earlier in the week with your jigsaw poem and use those as well. I've then started thinking about how I would describe my sword in quite a powerful way. So I might say it's silent and deadly, fierce and ferocious, unpredictable and devastating. I wonder what adjectives you could come up with for yours. And then kennings to describe what sort of a job a sword does. Now I used the work that I did from the Horned Helmet with Starcad to help me with this. I am a Deathbringer. I am a skin slicer. Okay. Maybe you could think of some of your own for your own weapon. In the box in the middle here, I've started to think about that if this sword was a real person, what sorts of feelings or what sorts of thoughts might it have? So where has your object been? Been in many battles. It's been kept in a scabbard in a king's side, at a king's side, and it's also been buried for many years in a burial how. Or who did it belong to? The richest king, and it was a man. I was a man's best friend. Okay. What has the sword heard? The cries of many victims, the sobs of widows, somebody whose partner has died, the whispers of the wounded. Okay, so I've really tried to think about my word choices to make them the most powerful words. And that game of word tennis helped me to do that, because I wouldn't have thought of whispers of the wounded straight away. I had to really develop my ideas to come up with that. How does this sword feel? Proud and important that it's done such an important job, but also perhaps guilty and wishing to do things again. Maybe it could do it differently. And then finally, I thought of some similes and some metaphors. And again, I've used some of these ideas from our jigsaw poem that we did earlier in the week. Striking in a blind rage, like a fire swept over me. Remember, me is the sword. Okay, so the like is what makes that a simile. Like a fire swept over me. Okay, so angry, as silent as a mouse, or I struck like a lightning bolt. Okay, and again, the like and the as makes those the similes. Whereas remember, the metaphor is saying that it is something else. So the sword could be a symbol of power. It is a trophy of honour. It is an image of power, or an instrument of victory. Okay, it's not really an instrument. It's not really a picture or an image. It's not really a trophy. So that's using a metaphor to give a little bit more information about it. Okay, so I'd like you to use these ideas to help you to have a go at popping some notes, some words, some phrases into your plan. Pause the video now and give that a go. Welcome back. How did you get on? I hope that you used some of the ideas that I've come up with to help you, and I hope that you used some of the ideas from your jigsaw poem earlier in the week. And hopefully you had to kind of do some of that word tennis to really get some of the most powerful words there. Now, as this is a plan, this is definitely something that can be added to as the week goes on, and definitely things that we can change in that. Okay, these are just our ideas at the moment before we pop it into a poem. So, any good poet wouldn't usually create their ideas first time. So, it may be now that you need to share your ideas with somebody else. So I want you to have a read of your plan and explain to somebody in your household of exactly what viewpoint you're writing from, whether you're writing from the shield or the helmet or the sword like me. Okay, and I want you to have a share with your ideas, and the person that's reading your plan with you, could they help you come up with some more powerful metaphors? Could they help you come up with a different example of a simile, or perhaps some more powerful alliteration? Once you've shared it with somebody, I want you to go back to your plan and see what more you can add. Okay. Finally, for today, I want you to have a look at this poem. You may know the poet. I'll share with you as to who's written this poem in a little while. So, it's called Personal Protector, and I popped a picture here as a clue as to what it is, the viewpoint that it's being written from. You'll notice that although the picture tells us that this is a shield, you'll notice that the word shield doesn't appear anywhere in the poem. And just like Sylvia Plath's poem of the mirror, the word mirror didn't appear anywhere in the poem. So this is an example of what you will have produced by the end of the week. Okay, personal protector. Some days I feel like a shrinking violet. A shrinking violet is somebody who's really shy. So you can see an example of a simile here. So I could definitely be ticking off that this person has used a simile. Lost in the big wide world. Many battles I have seen. A brick wall against the enemy. Well, I know that this shield isn't really a brick wall, so that's a metaphor saying it is a brick wall, so I can definitely tick that off as well. A brick wall against the enemy I have been. I am the constant companion of Gork. It's Gork's shield from the Horned Helmet. Constant companion is an example of alliteration. Never not, another example of alliteration. Never not by his side, face to face with the danger. I am never one to run and hide. So I can see some rhyme there as well. I haven't got rhyme as one of the features here, but I know side and hide and seen and been with some further examples. I know that there's some powerful adjectives there. Face to face with danger. I feel like a shrinking violet. A brick wall against the enemy. So some really powerful vocab that's been used there. I wonder if you can spot any examples of a kenning. Brick wall, perhaps. Maybe. So, do you want to know who the author is? Our very own Mr. Gooding, one of the Year 6 teachers, has written his very own poem from the point of view of a shield. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of inspiration as well. So I really look forward to seeing your plans today. Don't forget to send them in so we can see your ideas and see how you've got on. Well done for today, everyone. Take care. See you tomorrow.